Welcome to the Story Selling Podcast, the show that explores the art and science of authentic marketing for purpose-led entrepreneurs. With me, your host and founder of the Story Selling Lab, Rob Drummond. This episode of the Story Selling Podcast is sponsored by my agency, the Story Selling Lab, where I help purpose-led entrepreneurs to generate a consistent flow of great clients using LinkedIn ads without funding the big tech Christmas party. To learn more, head to storyselling.biz. On with the show. In part one of this mini-series on budgets and bidding, I was addressing the question of does paid advertising work? And more specifically, how can it work for you? On the last episode, we were exploring elements of how do you structure your accounts? What budgets do you set at different points? When should you use manual bidding and when should you use the default options of automatic bidding? When do you hand over bidding control to the ad network? So that was what we discussed last time. I want to round off this discussion of budgets and bidding by talking specifically about the different phases of an ad account. So if you have not run ads before, or if you have, but it's been quite a long time, maybe you haven't run any ads recently. Perhaps you ran ads in the past and it didn't really work, and maybe you're now considering revisiting it because you can see that your clients are on certain ad networks. You can see that your clients are on LinkedIn for a fact. But the question then is, what you then need is a testing budget. So for the vast majority of clients that I work with on a one-to-one basis, most of the clients that I work with are coming on board and it's either a new account, as in they want to test ads for the first time. Perhaps more commonly, they've tested ads in the past and they now want to revisit it. And what we're doing in the first instance is we are establishing a test budget. The test budget should be something that you're comfortable losing if it doesn't work. That's probably the first and most important thing to say, is that because it can take a bit of time to find the winning combination of both the targeting, the ad creative, and the offer, when you first start to run ads, you need to spend what you're comfortable losing. And it's not going to be that you're losing it on a month by month basis. If you're testing LinkedIn ads, don't start off spending, £500 a day. For instance, it might be that to achieve your business goals, to achieve the lead generation outcomes that you want, perhaps you want to accelerate to that point quite quickly, because spending £500 a day might generate, X number of leads a day. Perhaps that generates 100 leads a day, for instance. Maybe 100 leads a day is where you need to be at to scale the business in a way that you want. That's a reasonable working assumption, but you don't start there. You might start on, say, £15 or £20 a day. Especially, this is one of the reasons why I love conversation ads on LinkedIn, because you can spend a smaller amount to prove the use case and then expand the budgets once you've seen some results be generated. And again, I'm not going to give you specific numbers of, if it's a new account, you should be spending X. But often what I'm doing with my clients is we're starting smaller than they want to spend to begin with. We're then gathering data, testing audiences, testing ad copy. If we're running lead generation campaigns, we're testing at least 2 LinkedIn lead forms, perhaps with different headlines or different copy on those forms. If we're sending people to the website, we're testing, at least 2 different landing pages. Those landing pages might not be very different. They might just have a different headline that has a different emotional hook. So sometimes, the client might just clone the landing page and we'll change the headline, or we'll change the placements of the form, or, the amount of fields that are included in the form. But you want to test a couple of different options, because while you're spending your testing budget, you're gathering valuable data at each step of the process. You're figuring out, are these the right people? Given that every company, assuming you're not BlackRock or Vanguard, every company has a limited budget. So is this audience the right audience for you to advertise to? And you're gathering information on that. On LinkedIn, for instance, you might be using the campaign insights to figure out, well, who is actually seeing your ad? Who is responding to it? What job roles do they have? What job functions do they have? So you're gathering valuable data. If it's Google, what you're doing is you're looking at the search query report to see, okay, well, you've maybe targeted, say, 4 keywords in your initial ad group. What search queries, what terms are people actually entering into Google before they click on your ads? Are there any negative terms in there that actually you maybe don't want to advertise to? Because you want to figure that out on a small budget before you scale it up to a big budget. Because a mistake on a small level isn't, going to cost you that much. Whereas a mistake on a bigger budget is obviously going to, cost a lot more and have much more serious questions be asked of how you're spending your money. So the general rule of thumb is to start smaller than you want, but then once you've seen results, to scale up quite quickly. On LinkedIn in particular, there is also a factor of time, and I call this measuring time to money, because in order to prove the use case for increasing the budget, if you're generating leads on LinkedIn, usually those leads are not going to be sales ready. They're usually not ready to jump on a call straight away, because LinkedIn is quite a different environment to Google. On Google, people have had the problem, they've gone to Google to search for solutions. So they're already in solution finding mode, or at least they're at least exploring some particular problem. On LinkedIn, they're not doing that. You're just showing ads to them based on who they are, who they work for, their work interests. So because of this, even when they respond to an ad, they opt into your email list, they fill in their details into a lead form, they get added into your CRM system, they probably aren't ready to jump on a call straight away. You can try, you can invite them onto a call. Sometimes what you find by doing that is you actually end up on too many calls, and the people that you're speaking to aren't actually ready for a sales conversation yet because they don't fully know, like, and trust you. So often, usually what you'll have on LinkedIn is a period in between the point at which the lead is generated and the point at which they're ready to have a serious sales conversation. And you want to measure and track how long is that period between the contact opting in and contacts, on average, being ready to book a good quality sales call with you. Ideally, that should happen between 7 and 14 days after they first opt in from the ad. For some people, it will take a lot longer because they'll need more nurturing. They might not currently be in the buyer's market. They might just have the problem that you solve, but they don't currently have the money to solve it, or they don't have the level of understanding required. But it might be that they will in the future. So those people end up on your long-term nurture, which is why it's important to have, say, a weekly email, or as a bare minimum, a fortnightly email going out as your kind of long-term nurture program. But for the people who have the problem that you solve, are in theory good quality prospects, you want to measure, especially on LinkedIn, what is the time between them opting in and booking a call, if booking a call is your next step. Because once you've measured that, you can start to build up a bit of a model in terms of, if you generate 20 leads on LinkedIn, how many leads do you need to generate on LinkedIn in order to have one of those leads book a call with you? Maybe it's 5, maybe it's 10. The fewer leads you can generate in some respects in order to book one call, the better. So we're monitoring on a couple of levels. Yes, we're trying to maximize the number of leads opting in, but then we're also monitoring how quickly those leads turn into good quality appointments and what is the quality of those appointments like. Because the risk in scaling up is always that you broaden the targeting of the ads. It might be that your bullseye audience is quite small. So as you increase the budget, you maybe expand the targeting, You maybe increase the audience sizes a bit. And what it does is it widens the net. And because you widen the net, you then need to make sure that the leads who are opting in are actually, the right people. So in recap, those were the two things that I wanted to talk about today. Start small, grow big. Start with a small testing budget. Follow the advice that we talked about in the last episode of maintaining a simple campaign structure, starting out on manual bidding. But start small. But as soon as you see things starting to work, pour more resources into those campaigns and start to move those campaigns to automatic bidding. On the flip side of that, you're then keeping an eye on, for the leads that you're generating, how do they convert into good quality sales appointments? Because that ultimately is going to provide you with the use case for spending more on ads. That ultimately is going to help you answer, does paid advertising work for you? Because it's not completely just about the ads. It's actually about the follow-up. Yes, the ads are important, but the ads are only one side of the coin. The other side of the coin is how well do you follow up with the people who are opting in? And potentially, can you do so via multiple channels? Most advertisers will follow up by email. Do you also phone the people who opt in, if you can, find their phone number? Do you maybe send them something in the mail? Do you have a postcard that goes out? Do you have a letter that goes out? Do you have some kind of free gift? If someone looks like an especially good prospect who's likely to spend the big bucks, do you have what's called a bulky mail package of something unexpected and valuable that goes out to them as a gift? Sometimes that can be a good high return on investment strategy as well. So yes, in order to answer the question of does paid advertising work, we are looking at the ads, we're looking at the campaigns, we're looking at the ad copy, we're looking at your bidding, but we're also considering how do you then follow up with those leads, which I believe is equally important and potentially neglected by some advertisers. So those are the two sides of the coin. I hope you found this little mini series on budgets and bidding interesting. If you have questions about this, if you'd like to speak to me about your ad accounts in order to help you determine the right budget, for instance, head to storyselling.biz and follow the links on that page. Thanks. If you've enjoyed this episode of the Story Selling Podcast, you'll want to make sure you're on my email list. Head to storyselling.biz/podcast, where you can opt in to future episode notifications and also download my Lead Incubator Blueprint. You can also find my book, Simple Story Selling, on Amazon in paperback and Kindle formats. Thank you for listening, and I'll speak to you next time.